Welcome back to Hollywood Impact. It's me, Christian McCright, and of course, as always, Eric Grubbs.
Hello, Christian.
All right, so this has been a really... because why?
Because just the trailer alone scared me to death.
It scared you?
It scared me to death.
Just like because of how things are like nowadays?
Well, that and that just, it reminded me of when I watched The Joker.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be honest, I hated that movie.
Really?
I hated The Joker.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Hold on. You think it's a bad movie? Or you just didn't like the experience?
I did not like the experience.
Okay.
As far as the direction and Joaquin Phoenix's performance in that movie, it's outstanding.
It's a well-made movie,
Right.
but not for you.
And watching it, through that, I was like, yeah, it's a good movie. But how I felt, the lens of how I felt afterwards, I felt terrible after that movie.
Okay. And so you were afraid this is
I
gonna
was
be
afraid
kinda
I was going to feel exactly the same
this.
way after this movie.
Yeah.
I didn't, but I was afraid I was going to, and I really wasn't that excited about watching this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was always really excited. As soon as the trailer pulled up, I was like, this is awful timing, but also like perfect timing for this movie. It's kind of strange, honestly. But no, I was definitely looking forward to it. And yes, it is scary. Like, it is kind of like nerve-wracking at first, especially with the subject material. But I think that was a good thing for me, where I'm like, okay, this is something that makes me just a little bit like nervous,
Kind of on edge.
Yeah, kind of on edge, and I'm like, I kind of like that feeling. I like that it's potentially going to be something that may, shock me to my core, because I enjoy movie experiences that do that effectively.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, my concern, too, is I didn't want it to give anybody any ideas.
Yeah.
In
That's
the
fair.
real world, you know what I mean? But there were some
Absolutely.
There were some choices that the director made, though, that I do think were genius.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I don't think this is a spoiler, but we don't know what started all of this.
No, I have no idea.
No idea.
There's no indication.
And I don't think they used the terms Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal.
Not once.
One time.
I think they used the word liberal one time, but not even in the context of someone being
right.
a liberal.
And no reference to how or why things are the way they are in the movie.
No.
And I think that was such a good decision, because I think that was probably what was scaring me, because I just, we don't need to add any fuel to the fire. You know what I'm saying? And I just think the not knowing why, and they made Texas and California united.
Genius move, having the two most unlikely places to be in alliance to be in alliance.
So I thought that was really
to be the forefront of the movie, really.
Right. Yeah. So I think that there's some really good decisions there made, and I'm happy they did it, and that's why I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I really did.
Yeah. Earlier, a couple weeks ago, they had released like a map. I'll pull it up on the screen, but this map shows like where all the states aligned with, because there's multiple armies, or there's like 4 different factions. They only focus on 2, but there are 4 different factions, but it's mostly the loyalist states, which is part of, it's the leftover of the regular government versus the Western forces of Texas and California. And when I saw this, I thought it was super cool. It's another like hype piece for the movie. It's like, oh, here's where your state, aligned with this. And part of it was like really exciting. And then part of it was like, it just keeps going back into like, what if this actually happened?
Right.
And that part always kind of, it makes you uneasy.
Yeah.
It makes you nervous.
Well, seeing an American flag with just 2 stars on it like that, I didn't like it.
No, I don't
like that.
it. I like 50.
Yeah.
Stay 50.
Let's stay 50, guys.
That's a good number. That's a good number.
And the Florida Alliance, that was one of the other groups, right?
Florida Alliance and the New People's Army, which is, I don't even think it's mentioned in the movie. If not,
I don't
one
remember
time.
it if it was. Yeah.
That's like the Northwest people who just want to keep like the Portland Trailblazers and stuff like that.
They want the Seattle Supersonics
That's right. But in a world where Mary Jane from the Spider-Man trilogy gets Peter Parker's job from the Daily Bugle.
She was so good in this movie.
No, she is really good.
Like, this is probably the best performance as her and Jesse Plemons both stood out as characters.
Oh
for
my
me.
gosh, yeah, she's all about the job, like
right.
and that's kind of like something I'm assuming that whenever she was younger and was getting into like being a photographer, a journalist for the press for all this stuff going on. She was probably more emotional about it, of course, at first. But you can see, like, she's been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
And now she's gotten to a point where she's like, you have to separate, like, what you're supposed to do from what you actually feel about it. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really good because it gave a contrast to the younger person that they were forced to have tag along. And that helps both of their character developments because she teaches her, but she also learns something from this small kid.
Yeah.
I think she seems like a small kid.
But I think she's in her 20s.
Yeah, she's in like 20s, but
yeah, she did say she looked pretty young,
yeah.
like really young.
But no, it was definitely a ride.
And I thought it was cool that I didn't. The only thing I really knew was just Civil War.
Yeah.
But it was like a journey story, like they're on a quest.
Yeah.
They kind of start off in New York and they're trying to get to D.C. They want to interview the president.
Yeah.
And just everything they encounter along the way. And I thought that was. I wasn't expecting that, and so that was kind of a nice surprise that we're not getting into the politics of this. This is about their journey to get from here to there, and them trying to interview the president. And
and that works.
It does. It works. Totally works.
It totally works in its favor because it distracts the audience from the scarier parts of the movie. Mm-hmm. I think from getting too far into the reality or not reality of the situation, but. I mean, I thought it was super effective, but at times I did feel like I was missing some context. Like I get that maybe context would have made people lean one way or the other.
Right.
But I feel like from a general movie perspective, I would have liked a little bit more context behind what was going on. Not necessarily the exact cause or anything, but it kind of had a really abrupt ending too. So I kind of wish I would have seen a little bit of the aftermath, but this is a very particular movie that it walks around eggshells for sure. Like it tiptoes around so many different, kinds of ways to possibly shock someone, offend someone. It does not offend anybody. It's not that. If you're expecting some kind of movie that's about like you
my
have to lean
right, your side's
you have
wrong.
to lean to one side or the other.
Yeah.
It's not like, and with all these skirmishes and war scenes of thousands upon thousands of soldiers, it's not that kind of movie. There are war scenes, but they're much more closed in, and a lot of the scariest scenes in the movie have nothing to do with like the actual war scenes. It's more of like the close-up character moments, especially with Jesse Plemons.
Oh yeah,
my gosh,
that's probably the most on your edge of your seat kind of scene.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch
spoilers.
of them. No spoilers, but it is. And he is so good. I remember him as Landry in Friday Night Lights. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And just look at him now. With those red sunglasses he was wearing. Don't know why he was wearing them, but it
looked a little goofy, but
it made his character just seem that much more like you didn't know what he was going to do.
He looked unpredictable.
Exactly.
Like he didn't look like your regular person that was like in the military, that sort of thing. It looks kind of like a guy who's kind of in over his head, or is clearly, like it's just I can't talk too much about it.
No, but he was so casual with doing what he was doing, which if you watch the movie, you'll understand. Yeah. But that was a little creepy to me. Like this is just another day, and he's just doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like nothing.
There was an article by Screen Rant calling you out, Screen Rant. So look out.
So get ready.
No, I'm serious. I'm calling you out a little bit because I originally tried to see like, okay, what's the context between the states coming together or apart? I wanted some background, like maybe Screen Rant had some additional information that they got from the director or anything. And like they started talking about how, the Western forces are going against like this like fascist regime, like led by like someone who's like supreme evil. A lot of context to what he's saying, the very few lines that he actually has. So there's no indication that one side or the other is actually like the good or the bad guy.
Right. The only thing you do kind of get is whenever they're in the truck and they're driving and they're like, what kind of questions would you ask the president? And we don't know if I don't want to spoil anything, but we don't know whether or not these questions are true or anything like that.
Correct.
But I think you could maybe allude a little bit that he wasn't a good president, maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's definitive.
Right. Like, clearly, he was the president in the moment where things completely went to chaos.
Yeah.
So he might have incited something. But it's also very possible that maybe he did something that could have been reasonable, that somebody else was like, we're done with this, that pushed somebody else over the edge of crazy. And even in the movie, there are times where there's people from the loyalist states who do things that are clearly bad. And you start thinking, oh, like maybe these are the bad guys. Then there are people on the side that are actually kind of protecting our main characters who also do bad things.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the movie, I was like, I don't even know what to think.
Well, I'm glad there was no context.
No, I
don't want there to be any argument from any side.
Sure.
About I really thought the director made some outstanding decisions.
No, yeah, but that was the right decision.
Right.
I think for a personal sake, I'm really curious.
Sure.
So of course I want to know what's going on, but curiosity is one of those things where, as you said, you don't want to give people ideas, and so that could be one of those rabbit holes where someone could get ideas like that, because we live in such a fragile day and age.
Yeah. So what did you think, after the movie? So after I watched the movie, I've basically got 50 minutes to either think about the movie or maybe listen to something about a movie. I'm curious, was there anything in particular that went on, that you thought about afterwards that was maybe not related to the movie but was? And I'll explain what I was thinking about here in a minute. But
no, as soon as the movie was over, my wife and I, we just immediately left the theater and we just started talking about the movie. And all that I could think about was, I'm so glad that that's not happening.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that it was followed by a sense of relief, where I'm glad I had the experience, because it was so shocking that it made me appreciate, the life we have right now.
Yeah.
I think.
So it took me a minute to just leave. I just kind of sat there.
Yeah.
And just kind of processed, especially the ending. Then I got in my car and I'm driving, and I started thinking about my parents.
Really?
For some reason. Now, I know I joked in the Roadhouse podcast that my parents were terrible people.
They're not.
Clearly joking. My mom was probably one of the best people on this planet. And, Dad's all right. Dad's a good dude.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was just thinking about what they tried to teach my brother and I when we were little. So, my mom was always, trying to teach me how to be polite.
Yeah.
How to be respectful with people, how to treat people nicely, just etiquette and politeness. That was one of the many, many things she taught me. And then Dad was much more probably indirect with his teaching, more of a, I'm going to teach you by just showing you, just by example.
Lead by example.
Lead by example. And whether or not he knew that he was doing that or not, I don't know. But there's a story that my dad was a dentist back home. Okay. And one of his ladies that worked for him told me a story once about this guy come in late. He's just being really rude, just being a dick.
Yeah.
To the ladies that were working there.
Right.
Well, anyway, he sits down in the chair and he makes some kind of comment. He's like, you ought to tell your receptionist to get her head out of her ass. Dad rolled back. He's like, all right, we're done. Get the hell out of here. Yeah. I don't want to ever see you in my office again. So he was trying to, he taught sticking up for people.
Absolutely.
And doing the right thing.
100%.
When it's not always possible. So it makes me, I don't know why all this came to my head, but it makes me think, you said we're in a divided nation, and I agree, but I also think the craziest voices are the loudest.
Yeah, always.
And my interactions with people on a daily basis are very polite and normal. And we can believe in whatever we want to believe, but I think we need to have reasonable people need to let their voices be heard.
I agree. 100%.
And stand up for what is right, but do it in a polite and kind and respectful way.
Yeah.
Because this movie can't happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This can't happen. I don't ever want to be driving and get stopped and be asked the question, well, what kind of American are you?
Yeah.
That can't happen.
No.
We live, not to get rah USA, but we live in the best country on the planet, in my opinion.
We do.
All right, and one reason that we do, there's many, is the diversity we have in our country.
We do.
You know, we have people that believe and do all different things, and that's great.
Yeah.
Like, personally, this isn't a political podcast. I'm very liberal on some issues. I'm very conservative on some issues. I'm kind of whatever on other issues. You know, it doesn't matter.
Same way. Yeah.
But we have just a diversity here. Like when I watch the Olympics are coming up this summer. One of my favorite parts of the Olympics is the opening ceremonies and watching the United States come out.
Yeah.
Because when you see the United States come out and you see that large number and you see how diverse and how different we are, we basically represent the world.
Yeah.
And not every country's like that.
Right.
There are some that are strolling through there and they all look very similar.
Yeah.
But the United States is not.
Yeah.
And we're not only diverse in our people, but look at our land, our natural resources.
Oh, my gosh.
We have all the biomes, Christian.
We do, yeah.
We've got tundra with tropical rainforest.
We have deserts.
We have all of it.
Yeah.
We cannot ruin what we've got. We've got a good thing going. We can't let an election get in our way of something like this happening for real.
Of being just good people.
Exactly.
Being reasonable people.
Just reasonable people that care for one another.
With common sense.
With common sense. I mean, we're just trying to get through the day. We're trying to take care of our families.
Yeah.
And we can't let these loud, crazy voices speak for all of us.
Absolutely. And there was an important quote by my professor back when I was in CVO. My psychology major, which I'm currently not using, but I do appreciate very much. He said multiple times, when our instinct is to judge the actions of others compared to ourselves, we have to think that we're all just trying to get by.
Sure.
That we're all just trying to survive. Mm-hmm. And the quicker you're able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, the quicker you are to suppress your anger and more emotion so that you don't cause harm to other people. And I think that goes, regardless of whether someone believes or does things differently than you do, ultimately it's kind of like that's your business, man.
Whatever floats your boat. Buddy.
Whatever floats your goat. That's what I'm saying. I used to say that in college. Whatever floats your goat.
Why?
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
But no, this is, and that's why I think everyone should see this movie. Regardless of where you are on the political spectrum.
I agree.
This is a good movie to see because no one should walk out of that movie and say, that's what we need. This is what we should have.
Right.
Nobody should come out thinking like that. No one should come out and say, oh, yeah, well, I wish that we would just, take up arms, rise up and do this. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Come on. Who would actually want that?
No, I left and I felt like I wanted to be like the guy next to me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of jump kind of scenes.
The editing is a little,
I mean, he was reacting a lot like this.
Sure.
And I just wanted to hey, man, crazy movie, right? You know what I mean? I just wanted to
it's okay,
reach
brother.
out to this person and be like, hey, we're good. You know what I mean? I don't know.
It's like, I don't know you, but we're good, brother.
But, part of why I was scared to watch this is I thought it would have the opposite effect. But I think what it could do is inspire people who have a bit of sense about them to not let this stuff happen for real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
I agree.
And listen, 100%. This election season here, it's going to be wild, but it's not. I don't think it's as wild as any news program wants to let on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we can't let this, no matter what happens in November this year, we can't let that lead to anything that could start something like this.
Yes. And my wife, credit to her, she made a great point after we left and we were on the way back home. And she said that just goes to show you, not just in the context of the movie, but in real life, how powerful media is and how big of a grip it really does have on us and how much that pictures, photos, videos, quotes, anything taken in or out of context is so powerful.
Yeah. And
in a day and age where everyone's, like this all the time, every one of you that are watching this right now, ironic, stay on the phone, please. But that's such an important thing because we have to learn to put our phones down and get to know each other a little bit.
Sure.
Have an open discussion because you can see or read or hear whatever on YouTube, on Fox News, CNN, all the news platforms, whatever, TikTok, Twitter, any of it. But you're going to learn the most when you actually talk to somebody else.
Sure.
When you actually find a human being that's different than you to talk to, because you should go into every conversation thinking that someone could teach you something that you don't know. Mm-hmm. You should be a student of not just your craft or your job, but be a student of other people. Be a student of being willing to learn something or learn a new perspective from somebody else, even if you don't have to support it. You don't have to be all up in arms about it, but just understand.
Yeah.
At least try to have some sort of understanding of somebody else. And I think this movie is a good indicator that we can focus too much on the media side of things.
Sure.
And there's not enough sit down, open discussion about things.
That's one of the kind of the neat things that I've experienced with my time in the military is it's just like black, white, Hispanic, gay, straight, trans, whatever.
Yeah.
We're all working together. And at the end of the day, everybody's cool with one another.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we could joke around with each other, we could be playful, but at the same time, we had a level of respect for each other, that we had each other's backs,
right,
whatever. And we can do that as a nation.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't have to be just small groups. We can do that as a country.
Absolutely.
But we got to set aside just our pettiness.
Yeah.
And just really be open and listen to people. Again, we don't have to agree with everything,
yeah,
but we can still agree to have some dignity and that we can treat each other with kindness.
You don't have to adopt everybody's way of life, everyone's belief system or whatever. But it's smart to adopt a mindset of being understanding,
yeah,
being respectful, being reasonable, common sense, common courtesy,
sure,
golden rule, that sort of thing. So, but all of that aside, the movie also, I mean, not only is it a good point for all of these, but it's a well-made movie in general.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the editing is sometimes a little bit jarring. There were some songs used in places that were a little weird.
No, but I liked it. I
really
liked the soundtrack.
It was almost reversed. Like sometimes there was something really horrible going on, and there was like
and you had some kind of hip hop song playing behind it.
And then all of a sudden something bad is happening, or I mean something really good is happening. They're playing some sorrowful.
Did you watch Friday Night Lights, the TV show Friday Night Lights?
It's been a long time.
So some of the music there reminded me of that. Just kind of the guitar strum, just that kind of thing going on. It was just, I don't know. I thought that was really good.
No, but it was effective.
Yeah.
There was not one time that I wanted to take my eyes off the screen. It kept my attention 100%.
What I thought was really cool too was the scenes where the action's going on and they're taking pictures, and then it would kind of the frame would stop and you're seeing the picture, and then it goes back to the action, and it's like, I don't know, that was just really...
That is really cool.
That looked really cool.
It's cool to see this from a journalist perspective. And I know a lot of people who've reviewed this movie has said that, but it really is pretty neat. And it really is
I thought it was.
It's a good move by the director to use sort of like a neutral force. Now, is it actually a neutral force in this movie? Not particularly. But they're kind of used as a neutral force, because they're the press, and so kind of regardless of whether their side's fighting, they are supposed to kind of let them pass through. And but it was really cool, very effective, very cool way of showing your movie and showing certain things and certain shots that are actually more impactful when given through that lens. So
no, I was engaged the whole time, the entire movie.
I think the best thing about this movie, honestly, is the sound editing. The sound editing, like when things get really loud, it gives you a feel for war sucks.
Yeah.
And whenever you're in that situation, I've seen a lot of war movies. Hacksaw Ridge and Fury are probably my two favorites. I know everyone loves Saving Private Ryan. It's a good movie. I like that movie, but Fury is probably my favorite.
Yeah,
war
that's
movie.
pretty good.
But this one's pretty close too.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, the best thing about this movie is when it's in those intense scenes, the sounds that it uses for the atmosphere, for the guns, for whatever, it's almost overwhelming where you can't really hear the dialogue as much. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it really shows you like they're into it deep.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever those things happen, you're wanting to pick out what they're saying. You're trying to focus on them, but you're also like thinking at the same time, these are brothers and sisters who shared a land, who are driving tanks, shooting at each other, killing each other in cold blood, armed or unarmed. And it's both exciting and terrifying.
I thought it was interesting too that they make mention of like the girl's dad in Missouri.
And it's like, yes, representation.
He's on his farm just pretending none of this is happening. And I think there's probably a lot of people today that would just
do that,
pretend
that
this isn't happening. And that kind of goes back to we can't pretend.
Yeah.
We got to be proactive about not letting this kind of stuff happen.
Yeah. There is a scene in the movie, like this isn't really a spoiler, it's in the trailer, but they do come across a place that tries to function on its own without being, a part of the conflict. And it was pretty short. They weren't there for very long, but it really is very interesting compared to what you see the rest of the movie.
But at the same time, that town was not totally...
Right, like not totally out of the conflict. Like it still had something there, but like... But the way they, showed people walking around the street, people in stores.
And they were shocked. As they were driving through this town, they were shocked that this was happening,
Yeah. And so, like, it got me thinking, like, well, if this did happen, like, what would you do?
Yeah.
Like, you could easily say, oh, well, I'd take up arms and do whatever for whatever side. But would you actually? Yeah. Or, like, would you try to hold on to whatever good, dear part of life you have left, and seclude yourself and try to get away and take shelter from the storm, that kind of thing. I think it raises a bunch of good questions. The only thing that I didn't like about the movie, other than the editing was a little weird at times, the music, you like the music. I wasn't huge on it because I found myself just kind of raising my eyebrows, where I'm like, I'm intrigued, I'm engaged, but it wasn't necessarily positive. It was like, why are you playing this? But anyways, the one thing I really didn't like about this movie is it ended really quickly.
It's pretty abrupt.
Abrupt ending, and there was such a good build up to this moment, and all of a sudden, like, the moment happens.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know what happens after that.
Well, like,
and we can't say what happened.
Well. Not necessarily after, but it felt like there was a jump in time where nobody in the room that said thing happened said a word about it. It was just, oh, photo, done. And I was like, okay, well, okay. Yeah. I was like, I now have to think about what I just saw. And, it was fine, but that was the one thing where I was like, I wish I had 2 minutes maybe of somebody saying something to like the main characters kind of talking. And there is a weird character choice with one of the main characters. I won't say who, but if you see it, you'll probably figure it out. But they spend the whole movie, being a certain way, and the last little bit they kind of change around their behavior. And I wasn't super big on that, but once I kind of pulled myself back into it, then it was fine.
Yeah.
But anyways, honestly, what am I going to give this movie?
I've got a number.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm giving it a 9.
Give it a 9?
It's a 9 for me.
I'll go ahead and give it a 9 as well.
Yeah.
This is a really
this movie's good.
It's it's got like a couple of nitpicks, but for me they're more nitpicks than anything.
And again, I hope it can be an inspiration for us to be cool,
Yeah, and I think maybe
really do.
I think that possibly this would be a movie that they would show, later on. Probably not in classrooms, but maybe college campuses and things like that, like things to inspire the younger generation that, like, hey, this is, it's not true, but here's, a movie that could show you, how bad this could be.
Yeah.
You know, and that way, you know, it gives no context. There's no sides, no nothing. Just a land full of brothers and sisters, people who share, you know, we all share this world, but most of all, us here, you know, we share this land, and to go at each other's throats is one of the ugliest things that could ever happen. So, but I think it's an important piece of cinema to consume, and that's why I'm rating it a 9. Under my own personal circumstances, I would probably give it like an 8, 8.5. But I think that the importance behind it is enough to push it to, this is a 9, because it's not just, hey, this is a good movie. It's, hey, you need to go see this.
Yeah.
And that boosts the score, I think.
Well, listen, again, we have a great country. Do we have a perfect country? No. No,
no one's ever going to have one.
We got lots of stuff to fix. Yeah, our countries are made of people, and people are inherently going to do bad things.
Yep.
But man, we do need to preserve what we do have, and not let something like this happen for real.
I agree. I agree 100%.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for joining today, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more. And we will see you in the next one.